Just ended it with the most amazing guy because he wants kids. We'd been dating for a little over a month, and he seemed to be perfect for me in every way. He's smart, respectful, incredibly kind, and very good looking. He's a forest ranger and passionate about environmental issues, which is a huge thing for me. He lives 2 hours away in a little mountain due to his job. But every Saturday for the past few weeks, he'd make the drive to come see me and we'd spend the whole weekend together. Usually I get the conversation out of the way on the first date or even prior to it, but somehow it didn't come up with this guy. And I realized I'd been putting it off for too long. Last night when I asked him where he saw himself in 5 years, he said he wouldn't mind being married with a kid. That's when I knew it was over. We weren't dating for that long, but he was everything I wanted in a partner, aside from that one very important thing. I'm really sad right now, but I know it was for the best. I've been single for almost 5 years, and I want a relationship more than anything, but I refuse to settle. I'd rather be single for the rest of my life than be a mom. Dating is hard, but I'm still hopeful that there's someone out there for me, and I'm proud of myself for sticking to my guns and staying true to myself, despite how lonely I get sometimes. Playing the devil's advocate here, did he know that Childfree was an option? My now husband genuinely didn't know it was possible. He's from an Irish Catholic family, and you just get married, fill the house with kids. We're 21 years married and sterilized. It just took someone to open his eyes to the idea that Childfree was possible. A lot of people don't even realize that they have a choice in the matter. Same here. Considering that he said he wouldn't mind being married with kids and not that he wanted them no matter what, my husband and I initially both didn't know it was an option and had some vague plans to have kids in the future because that's just what you do. Then I discovered the sub and realized I'd actually prefer to be child-free, and he agreed with me. I know in the ideal world, people are set on these topics before getting married, but we also got married relatively young. From another comment by the original poster, it sounds like the boyfriend had a lot of cognitive dissonance about the conversation. Up to the original poster whether it's worth the risk of being the one to try to pull him over the fence entirely. My wife and I also went over the fence together, but looking back on it, I don't think I'd have the emotional energy to try dragging someone over the fence now that I'm on this side of it. I also just ended a 3-year relationship with an almost perfect partner. I'm more like a fence sitter where I have one steady foot set in the child-free zone, but he's a faithful breeder. It sucks donkey balls, but it really is for the best. I'm happy that you didn't make the compromise to settle and live a life full of resentment. Just like what I saw in this sub, the perfect partner would be the one where your interests align. Good luck, original poster. Smiley face. How did this go for you, if you don't mind me asking? I'm deep into a relationship of a couple years and have been on the fence for most of my life. When we met, I was open to the idea, but now I realize I just don't want them. I have to end the relationship, but we've practically built a life around each other. It's tough, but I know it's necessary. I don't know how much you guys have been talking about it, but we've known about our differences around 1 year in, but chose to bury our heads in sand because almost everything else was going so well. Somewhere along the way, it really started to torture us internally, and he ended the relationship a few weeks ago. Not going to lie, the first 2 weeks have been really hard. Even though we said that we'll still be friends, but we both agreed to only keep minimum contact at first. The adjustment from significant other or confidant to barely talking is excruciating. But now that I'm more calm and can think more objectively, I'm thankful that he made the call. No one should be making compromises on such big life decisions. I completely get the point that when you've built a life around each other, so did we. But think about it this way. Your lives are so intertwined now, but in the future, one of you is bound to suffer because either you or him had to compromise and wonder about all those what ifs, and either regret or resentment will kick in. That stinks, but I'm glad you're sticking to your guns. Regarding, I've been single for almost 5 years and I want a relationship more than anything, but I refuse to settle. Whitney Houston said it best. I'd rather be alone than unhappy. Keep your head up. You'll find him. You won't regret it. Good on you for being true to yourself. Just once, I'd like a woman to ask the guy, who will stay home with an infant? If both work, who takes off for doctor visits and when the little one is ill? Are you ready to sacrifice all your hobbies? Can't spend hours gaming when Spawn becomes hungry, tired, or wet? Ready to add 10 plus years to your estimated retirement date? just once. I asked my boyfriend this. We're now married and no kids. Smiley face. My parents spent hours on their hobbies, but they may have crossed the line into neglect. Did you ask if he'd be open to being married with no kids? If he's that into the environment, I'm surprised he wants to contribute to overpopulation. Then again, maybe I'm not. Most people I've met who quote-unquote care about the environment won't even discuss overpopulation without becoming furious at you for suggesting that humans just existing in the numbers we do is bad for the environment. They start going on about every person alive being vegan, the abolishment of plastic, 11 billion people could fit into an area the size of Texas, lecturing you about how bad you are for eating a few eggs or some cheese while they have 5 kids under the age of 6 and are either actively trying for another or just aren't using birth control methods. Not considering that most people won't even try food that's labeled as vegan, let alone become vegan themselves. Not considering that maybe while single-use plastic is on the way out, plastic will never be fully gone, especially in the medical industry. Not considering that people need privacy, green spaces, space to move, food and water, transport, work. Not considering that I could drive a monster truck and eat nothing but McDonald's in single-use plastics and still not produce the carbon footprint that their massive family does just by existing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to work on these things, but it's stupid to think that 11 billion people will ever exist sustainably without a violent uprising made up of the right people to implement a green system wipes out capitalism worldwide. Love this comment. One of my good friends is insanely climate active, won't buy new clothes or fly, etc., but is dead set on having children despite all of the above and the fact that she suffers from severe mental illness. She's an extremely clever woman, but it just makes no sense to me and I worry for her future child. It really makes me wonder if the desire to have children or not is basically genetic, or at least determined at a very, very early age. And all the intellectual arguments we make in favor or against are basically just justifications for what we already know we want. I have all kinds of logical reasons why having children is a bad idea, but I'm pretty sure that if they all just went away, I still wouldn't want them anyway. Well, it's interesting because we've had a lot of conversations in the past that led me to assume he was child-free, or at least that having children wasn't a necessity for him. We've had the discussion about overpopulation. We had another conversation once about the ethicality of dog breeding, and he brought up that it's inconsistent for people to be against breeding animals but not humans. He revealed to me in a discussion about climate change that he is collapse aware, r/collapse. He even mentioned that he was considering getting a vasectomy because they're reversible. So I went into the conversation last night not expecting him to mention children in his future. It's confusing because this contradicts everything he said to me before. I don't know if he's a fence sitter or maybe it's just cognitive dissonance. When I was breaking it off, he kept changing the subject and making the breakup about him leaving for the summer and it being bad timing for a relationship instead of our incompatibility regarding children. That made it even more confusing for me. We ended on good terms. He said he'd like to stay in touch and to shoot him a text sometime, and we agreed to possibly being friends once he's back in the fall, if we feel that enough time has passed. So if we do stay friends, then maybe he can provide some clarification on his stance, and perhaps I can gain explanation for my reasoning as well. It would be nice to have a rational talk in a few months, once the emotions have died down a bit. You wouldn't be suspicious immediately that he wanted a vasectomy because they can be reversed? Good for you. It's hard, but you did the right thing. We know when either person compromises on having kids, it breeds resentment down the line, and you avoided that while leaving on amicable terms. The best outcome for a crappy scenario. I say we make up a weird habit to make him less appealing in your memories. Who's to say that he doesn't keep all of his toenail clippings in a jar? Exactly. Better to end it now than to waste years of time for both of us. It sucks that it didn't work out, but I'm happy how it ended. He was very understanding. Ooh, but he doesn't. He only keeps other people's toenails in his jar. He eats his own while they're fresh. It's always easy for the man to want kids. Sad that traditional life script brainwashing got to another potential good one. In defending my position, I always emphasize the real risk and harm to women's bodies and lives for childbearing and rearing. I can understand it's hard for men to conceptualize, but so many women too don't seem to acknowledge the absolute massive changes and consequences it had. So many men just assume women will bear children for them. They expect the woman to go through pregnancy and labor so they can have offspring, not to mention other care that tends to fall to the mother. If both men and women could give birth, I might be more open to having kids because I don't want to be pregnant, or at least take turns so that it was fair and a true division of labor in the relationship.